Welcome to a quick update, 1 year on from the Japanese tsunami. I'm going to start by suggesting 3 sites which you can use with students to explore the aftermath of the tsunami, and in particular the way that the Japanese society, government, the people of the area around Sendai have recovered. This is obviously an ongoing process, and it will be decades probably before the effects of this tsunami are finally overcome. And for some people, of course, it will never be the same again. This site is called The Big Picture. It's the Boston Big Picture, boston.com/bigpicture. It's a site that I go to for pictorial inspiration, images, image sets of things that are in the news. I've used many images from here over the years in the classroom. You'll notice on this particular page that there are options to tweet and share the pictures on Facebook. And there's also this new Pin It button, and Pinterest is a site which seems to be attracting a little bit of interest. Pinterest is basically like a pin board where you can pin things that you're interested in, and maybe I'll have a look at that and the geographical uses of that in a future video guide. But today what we've got a series of pictures which are paired pictures. What we've got is before and after pictures. We've got people who are shown in the area of the tsunami on or just around the day of the tsunami, and then around about the same time this year. And these would make really nice contrasts for students to appreciate the changes that have gone on. So for this one, for example, we've got a street, and if we click the picture we can see the actual same place a year ago. A really dramatic image showing the difference between the day of the tsunami and the same place now. So you can see the defences being overcome there. This one here, I suppose one thing you could do is to say to students, okay, so what are you expecting to see when I click the picture? What would you expect? What's changed? What's gone? What's been added? Tsunami is an event which changes history essentially. We're not used to seeing things change so quickly. We're used to much more gradual change in neighbourhoods. But on that day, back in March 2011, this whole area changed. In fact, the whole area moved substantially. If we now go to this fourth image, I'm not going to go through all of them, of course. Again, clicking the image takes you back to that day when the tsunami hit the region. So that's the Boston Big Picture, which is a good source of images. Second site is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is obviously a news agency. Al Jazeera is available on satellite and sort of free view type channels. Al Jazeera also has quite a lot of journalists that you probably be familiar with from BBC ITV channels. It's a great news channel, and Al Jazeera has an in-depth spotlight on the Japanese aftershocks. So you go to news, aljazeera.com, you click on in-depth and you choose spotlight, and this will take you to a whole set of resources marking what's described here as the twin disaster. In some news agencies it describes a third or triple disaster, because essentially we had the earthquake, we had the tsunami, and then we had the nuclear incident at Fukushima. So what you've got here is a whole range of video materials. So for example, if you look at the right hand side there where your programs is coming through, you've got a program looking at nuclear energy. There's one looking at this idea of Tendenko, self-preservation, and maybe the fact that people did look after themselves maybe meant that more people survived. Interesting discussion. And there's one on the Fukushima fallout. And Fukushima is also down here where we have a whole range of possible problems around the Fukushima site. We've got the fact that the Japanese are rebuilding on possibly unsafe ground. Got video materials to mark the disaster. Got the original coverage here. We've got blogs. We've got radiation. We've got all sorts of images about the Japanese tsunami. And then a Twitter feed here. And for Twitter users, there's an account called City Renaissance. So that's twitter.com/@cityrenaissance, which really provides a daily set of images and links. So as I said, this is really an ongoing year-long story so far, and it's going to continue. And that means that in terms of geography teaching, it's something which has a little bit of longevity. Very often when we're teaching things, they come and go fairly quickly. Traditionally, of course, geography studied topics like rivers and coasts, which you could study endlessly for year after year. The rivers and the coasts were still there. There seems to have been a tendency more recently to go for more short-term things like fashion, things like crime, things like the Olympics even, which is obviously an important focus for this year. But for next year, will we still be teaching the Olympics? Possibly not. The tsunami is going to be here, and the story of the recovery is going to be ongoing for many years. And it's sort of a look at the longer term impacts, a chance to look at in depth perhaps, whereas it's the more superficial learning that sometimes happens maybe. So that's aljazeera.com and the Boston Big Picture. And the third resource I'd just like to flag up is this New York Times page. New York Times Interactive, so nytimes.com. Look for the interactives. And at the moment, what they've got is a report by Jamie Williams, who is also on Twitter. And what Jamie Williams does is he revisits communities which have been affected by the disaster. And what he's doing here is he is looking at 3 evacuees, and they recount the one item they were able to save, the one item that they lost, or the one item that they missed the most. And that would be a really interesting context for a piece of writing by students. What would they miss the most? What would they try to save? And what item do they think that they would make the most of effort to try and avoid losing? The middle one, for example, the piece of music there. You could perhaps find that piece of music and have it playing as you discuss the story of how important it is to that person. Now that's just one of many other resources that are obviously around at the moment around the tsunami. I think it's really worth making the effort to try and find and try and source useful images, useful stories, rather than just facts, that these are people and the way that they've been affected. And it's that idea of a narrative, the idea of writing the earth that we get back to all the time in geography.